Hey guys, here is the Morocco ending notes. So let's start with episode 11. I know some of you all already saw this, but we will still talk about it. So Pilar decides not to go away with Alejandro, the journalist photographer guy. He's going to Egypt and wants her to go, and she decides not to. And she says that she can't go because everything that she loves is in this hospital, and tells Luis that, which kind of hints that maybe she still has feelings for Luis and she can't let her heart kind of detach from him. When she tells him that, you can see there's a little bit of a moment between them two, definitely old feelings simmering back. Susanna and Fidel decide to move up the wedding and that they will be getting married in 2 weeks. We also see that the bombs are getting closer to Melilla. We hear a big bomb go off, and that causes the Duchess to ring the bell, take cover, and start covering the windows. The Duchess calls all the nurses into her office and basically says, with the war getting closer and closer to Melilla, if any nurse wants to go home, they can. All the nurses decide that they are going to stay. We see the military trying to bring in reinforcements and set up barriers and blockades inside the little lobby area in the hospital. And the Duchess does not want that. She's not ready for that. The guy that's in charge of this is that Molina guy, and he's like the big bad hardcore soldier. He's friends with Andres. And she pretty much tells him that this is her hospital, it's run by her, and he needs to move his crap out. So we see Magdalena. Magdalena wakes up in Spain. She's not happy though. She's back home with her mom and she doesn't feel right. She misses the hospital. She misses Larby. She doesn't want to marry Daniel, but she's not told her mom anything yet. Her mom tells her it's all okay. She's back home now. She thinks maybe just her daughter's just like scarred from everything she saw, and tells her that she needs to go out in town, have tea, and do some of the old things that she used to do. Magdalena and Daniel go out for tea and desserts, and he's trying to like make her happy and see her old life, and she reiterates that she does not want to marry him. She basically wants to go back to Melilla. She wants to be a nurse, and that no matter what, she's not going to marry him. We see back in Melilla that Andres is working on trying to uncover some issues that he's found in his paperwork. You know, Andres, which is Julia's fiance, is now working in Melilla. He wanted to go back to the front, and they told him no, he was going to do a desk job. And he's uncovering that there may be some shady business going on in the military, within the own military. He takes the matters to General Ibarra, who is over the colonel, and General wasn't very happy to hear about it. He didn't really push him off, but he also thinks that Andres needs to quit meddling in stuff that, you know, he doesn't like that Andres is bringing this to him. You can tell that Julia is no longer happy with Andres. She's not really in love with him. She can't stop thinking about Fidel and when they were captured and had a night together. She tells Andres everything's okay, but you can just tell she's missing Fidel. Fidel notices that Julia's different. He's different. And they have a discussion about how everything's changed, and they have these hard feelings for each other. And Fidel tells Julia to meet him in town in half an hour. They need to get away to talk. So then we see Luis and Pilar having a discussion. You can tell they're falling back in love with each other. Raquel sees him talking to Pilar, and she literally loses it. She absolutely loses it. And Luis at this point is really annoyed with Raquel. He's starting to see through her and see that she's manipulated him, and he kind of resents that he can't be with Pilar because of Raquel, because of him getting her pregnant and marrying her. When Julia is leaving the hospital to meet Fidel, the Duchess sees her. And the Duchess confronts her because the Duchess, remember, saw them making out in the laundry room. And the Duchess basically tells her that you are doing something wrong. You have a fiance, he has a fiance, and imagine what you could be doing to this hospital by putting it in jeopardy, being at the colonel is Susanna's dad, and Fidel is one of the main doctor. Julia acts sorry, but we know Julia's kind of self-centered, so she goes to meet him anyways. When she is out meeting him, the Molina guy, the hardcore soldier, friend of Andres, sees her running around with Fidel and sees Fidel grab her hand and pull her out in town. And he literally just starts giggling. It's kind of sick because he knows at that moment that Andres' little girlfriend is cheating, but he just kind of laughs about it. So then we see that Andres goes to the canteen owner and confronts Damaso, which is Raquel's dad. He's also the canteen owner, and he's noticed some issues with his paperwork dealing with the canteen. He demands that he's going to need a signed copy of where some of the funds have gone from the canteen, and Damaso doesn't have that. It turns out the military, and he ends up telling Raquel this, his own daughter, made a deal with him that if he basically remained open, they would allow him to remain open and run the canteen if he funneled so much profit into the military. And in order that he can keep his bar open, he has to have a signed copy from an official ranking officer. And if he doesn't, he can lose the bar. And Andres tells him he's going to need a copy of this agreement, yada, yada, yada. But he doesn't have a copy. So Andres tells him he's going to need a copy, and Raquel's freaking out, thinking, oh my gosh, my dad's going to lose the bar. So she asks Luis, her husband, Damaso's son-in-law, who's a ranking officer, to sign the letter. Luis doesn't want to do it because it's not truthful. He never was a part of this agreement, so he feels like it's lying. Raquel tells him that if he doesn't do it, that basically he's going to lose the bar, and it's going to be Luis's fault because he wouldn't sign it. So Luis meets with Damaso and says he's going to sign it, but in the end, he wants the truth. He wants to know, is he really, truly the baby's daddy? And Damaso keeps his end of the deal and tells him that chances are no, Luis is not the baby's daddy, and that Raquel was actually still fooling around with Roman when they were together. So, and he basically comes out and says, you can't blame her though, because she wanted to marry a good man, talking about Luis, and that doesn't set well with Luis. So we instantly see Luis's attitude change towards Raquel now that he knows the truth. Gloria and Guillermo, they continue to flirt. You can tell, he's into her and she's overly into him. And Veronica's a little jealous, which is crazy because she never wanted to have anything to do with Guillermo. But now that her sister's in the picture, she all of a sudden, yeah. Back in Madrid, we see that Magdalena meets with the queen, and she ends up telling the queen everything. She ends up telling the queen that she fell in love with a Moro, and that's where her true love is. And the queen tells her she's crazy. She needs to get that out of her head, marry Daniel, stay in Madrid, and basically stay in this royal line. So the queen offers her no help. So you can tell that she's really, really, really just heartbroken, and she can't take it anymore. And she tells her mom that she does not want to marry Daniel and she wants to go back to Malia. And her mother slaps her in the face and says that if she leaves, she's not giving her a penny more and never to return to the family again. Fidel tells the Duchess, he meets with the Duchess in her office and says that he does not want to marry Susanna, and he tries to resign from the hospital, knowing that him not marrying Susanna would be a lot of drama. The Duchess pretty much says, don't even dare hand me your resignation, you're not resigning. And right as this is going on, Susanna walks in and gives the Duchess an invitation to their wedding. And you can tell the Duchess is just like shocked, like, okay, when she really knows what's going on. It was super awkward. When Luis finds out that Raquel pretty much tricked him into marrying her, he decides that he wants to get a divorce from her. And basically, I'm not sure what this means, but repudiate, which means like basically she suckered him into marrying him. And he admits that he's fully in love with Pilar, and they end up Pilar and him end up making out in the medicine room, and he says all he wants to do is be with Pilar. But he also doesn't want to abandon Raquel. He feels bad. Andres is seen in the bar getting the documents from Damaso. Damaso's got the documents ready because Luis signed them. And his friend Molina thinks it's disgusting that he's basically chasing the Spaniard people to try to figure out what's going on. And he says, you're basically trying to guilt your own people. And they end up getting in a fist fight. And Molina tells him that if you were so smart, you would know what's going on with your own fiance. Yikes. So Molina basically just told him that, hey, that your fiance is cozying up with that doctor, and if you were smart enough, you would be able to see that. So Andres goes back to the hospital, and Julia's taking care of him because he's got cuts and bruises all over his face from the fight, and he comes out and just asks, basically, are you in love with Fidel? And Julia doesn't hide it anymore, and she tells him she is, and that it all came out of nowhere and happened out of nowhere. But basically, yep, she loves Fidel. She wants to be with them. She didn't know this was going to happen. And he ends up walking out of the hospital mad. And then we see him going to command, where General Ibarra ends up suspending Andres for fighting. So he's suspended from the military. On the way out the door of command, he runs into Susanna bringing in items for the wedding. And he's so mad at everything that's happened that he tells Susanna, we need to talk. And he tells Susanna that their fiancés have basically been cheating on them. And she is shocked. She doesn't want to believe it. Susanna goes home, and her parents can tell that something is wrong. She denies it and acts like everything's okay, but you can see it all over her face that something is wrong. Her dad sits down with her, the colonel, and says he loves her and he's always going to be there for her, and she can tell him, and she just keeps on being like, no, it's fine, I'm getting ready to be a married woman. Larby receives a letter from Magdalena and asks Pilar to read it. It turns out Larby can't read. Pilar wants to try to stay out of their business, kind of on this new journey to not meddle, and he begs her to read it because he can't. She confesses her love for Larby, says she fell in love with them. She's crazy about him. But in the very end of the letter, she does tell Larby that she will not be returning to Melilla, and she's going to stay in Madrid. Larby is heartbroken, and we see him just break down. In a new scene, it shows regular townspeople showing up at the hospital. It turns out their homes were bombed. They're okay because they were out in town, but they have no home to return to, and they were told to go to the hospital. The Duchess says to bring them in. These people have nothing. We've got to take care of them. When they're bringing the people in, there is a sniper in front of the hospital, so they're running everybody into the hospital. Andres, who was at the hospital, and Fidel decide to go outside to check out who it is. The Duchess asks Fidel, please don't go outside. You're a doctor. We can't have anything happen to you. Of course, he denies and says he has to go. They ask Luis and Guillermo to go with them. Guillermo is terrified, but he knows he has to go. So you've got Andres, Fidel, Luis, and Guillermo all outside. They're up against the building with their guns, trying to figure out what's going on. We see Andres and Fidel go to the shooter. So they are going to be brave and run straight to the shooter. They ask Guillermo and Luis to cover them. It's kind of a funny scene in a moment because Guillermo has no clue how to work a gun. He's trying to shoot because the bullets are coming, and he doesn't even know to take the safety off. So it's kind of funny, but it's also not. It turns out that the sniper is the Riffian, Rashid, who actually saved Andres. Okay, you remember that guy? He said, Allah doesn't want us to kill. So what we see is Fidel and Rashid holding each other at gunpoint. And of course, Fidel, in his manner, he drops his gun and tells Rashid to drop his gun as well. He doesn't want to hurt him. He doesn't want to kill him. Rashid ends up telling Andres and Fidel everything that happened in the hospital, and it shows flashback scenes of Rashid while he was in the hospital. Remember, after they brought Andres home, he is getting kicked in the head by the Spaniards. They take him in the bathroom. They're trying to drown him. He's got blood all over him. So here Rashid saved Andres's life, and he's still not respected by the Spaniards. They're trying to take his life. So Fidel puts down his gun and says he's not going to kill him, tries to talk sense in him, and right as we get ready, he's getting ready to kill him. He loads his gun, pulls it back, and all of a sudden, boom, Rashid falls to the ground. Andres shot Rashid right as he was getting ready to shoot Fidel. They get down on the ground, they're looking, they can tell it's Rashid, and they're upset because they're like, all he wanted to do was live his life in peace, and nobody would let him. The Spaniards wouldn't let him, the Riffians wouldn't let him. So they both start screaming, and you can just tell that they're just both upset with this. They scream out, this damned war. So then all of a sudden they both stand up, and we see Andres point the gun at Fidel and saying, you ruined my life, now I'm going to ruin yours. And it looks like Andres is getting ready to shoot Fidel in the head. And Fidel basically says, I never knew what was going to happen between me and Julia. It happened. I'm so sorry. I can't help but love her. It's not my fault. I can't help it, yada, yada. And we're thinking, oh my gosh, we are going to see Andres shoot Fidel in the head. And Andres just sits there holding the gun, shaking, and then he screams and points it up at the sky and shoots. We see Fidel apologize and say he couldn't help it. And the episode actually ends with Andres pointing the gun. So I take that back when it says that he shot the gun up in the air and screamed. That actually happened in episode 12. So we see the episode end with him holding the gun at Fidel. So I'm going to stop there. That was episode 11 recap.